Hello there, people of the internet. Interesting question for you guys today. I have to clean these rifles or these firearms anyway because they're black powder and I've already shot them. But I got an interesting one for you guys that was brought up to me by somebody I was talking to earlier after I had filmed my previous set of videos on these. And they asked me when muzzleloaders become irrelevant. Not necessarily irrelevant, I guess that's not necessarily the term that I'm looking for, but whenever they become a choice that you wouldn't want to go to. There will always be that choice of, having something is better than nothing, but whenever you can choose between the technology that is existent and compared to the older technology, there's a point in time where that older technology does not stack up well against the newer technology to really be a substantial threat. And where does the muzzleloader fall into this category? Now, whenever I say the relative nature of the muzzleloader, I'm going to go ahead and exclude any sort of survivalist style firearms or any sort of hunting application for this, because in my personal opinion, the muzzleloader, being able to run that indefinitely since it does not take a brass cartridge, is one of the best choices for a survival rifle out there. However, if we're talking about an actual defensive situation, we're going to go ahead and leave it at defensive and not necessarily offensive. We'll go ahead and cover that here in a second. Whenever it comes to a defensive situation, that kind of negates a lot of the arguments behind the muzzleloader. So with our muzzleloader, I have my Hawkins right here. This right here is a Hawkins-inspired muzzleloader, obviously representative, but this is a 50 caliber muzzleloader, single shot. And if I had to defend myself against something, a lot of people will tell me it only takes one shot to take down your target. Well, that's fine and dandy unless there's multiple targets or unless you have to do suppressive fire to, break away from whatever threat is going on, or if that target is hyped up on some sort of drug or something and they're continuing to come at you despite the fact that they now have a golf ball sized hole somewhere in their abdomen. There's a lot of instances where it will in fact take more than one shot to take somebody down, but there are some instances where one shot will be enough. So in the event that you find yourself in a situation where there's one person, they're not hyped up on something, you take aim and pull your trigger, and guess what? That person is officially taken down and your single shot muzzleloader has achieved victory. Well, if something happens and they decide to themselves that they are not going to go down, well, now you have to reload your single shot. And if this person who just took that round, maybe they have body armor on, maybe your soft lead round ball is not enough to be able to take down that person, so you got to go ahead and try and hit him again at a spot that is not covered by body armor. And sitting here trying to load your muzzleloader, one round, powder, ball, shove that in there. I'm not using a patch because I'm about to immediately fire this and we're only at about 40 yards. This is good enough for me to hit the side of a car. And then we grab our little number 11 cap here, shove that onto our percussion cap nipple, hammer back, and if that guy had a modern firearm by today's standards, I would have been wiped off the face of this planet by the time I was ready to actively fire. Now, if you have multiple people and you have one guy who can cover you while you reload, then there will be a much better option. But that is sustained fire, and that is something that you need multiple muzzle loaders and multiple people for. So it's the same concept of sending more lead downrange, just with extra steps. So yeah, the idea of using this in a practical sense really does not make much sense if we're going to be talking about a defensive standpoint. So by today's standards, no, but how many generations can we go back before this becomes a practical standard again? In my personal opinion, I feel like I'm probably going to get some flack on this one, but I feel like the muzzleloader pretty much I feel like its practical defensive run capabilities ended once breech loading cartridge firing technology became a thing. Around the turn of the Civil War, especially whenever repeaters started becoming involved, like lever actions and whatnot, around the turn of the Civil War, especially after the Civil War, the idea of loading a cartridge into the back of your chamber versus having to load from the muzzle dramatically increased the rate of fire that you can send lead downrange with. So yeah, like dramatically increases. You go from being able to load like, fire effectively 3 rounds down at your target, assuming that you're very skilled with a muzzleloader, to being able to fire, 25 to 30 rounds down at your target with a simple breech loader. I know I can load and fire those exceptionally quickly. So as far as the muzzleloader goes, that right there was deemed obsolete pretty much. I mean, hell, there's even some arguments as to whether or not it was obsolete during the Civil War itself. It was definitely a primary firearm, but there were firearms out there that were much better. And whenever I use the term obsolete, there's a couple of caveats with that. People think obsolete means it's not good, it's not going to get the job done. That's not what obsolete means. Obsolete technically means that nobody else is using it, but that is not what my definition of obsolete is whenever I say obsolete. Whenever I call something obsolete, I'm referring more to the word antiquated, meaning that there is better technology out there that is able to do the same exact job in a more efficient manner. Now, that right there is the simple single-shot muzzleloader. What happens if we move on to something like this right here? This is a cap and ball style revolver, and this particular one holds 6 rounds of ammunition. In 1873, Colt came out with their single-action army, and of course there were cartridge-firing revolvers before this point in time, but the Colt single-action army definitely took off and became the main cartridge firing for most of the people here inside the United States by a pretty huge margin. Before that, Colt's percussion cap systems and some Remington 1858s and whatnot, those were definitely the dominant firearms for the time period. But once the cartridge technology took off for the handguns, your cap and ball revolvers still had a pretty good argument behind them as to whether or not you should keep them or swap over to your cartridge firing revolvers. Simply because with your cartridge firing revolvers, the steps to reload that thing are still too slow to be able to effectively do that in combat. Same as reloading a cap and ball revolver is still going to be effectively too slow to be able to do in combat. So if it was, the 1870s, if it's 1875 and, you see a new cartridge firing revolver, the benefits of spending the money to get this new cutting edge technology does not necessarily, in my opinion, it would not necessarily be worth it. I would just go ahead and consider getting myself more equipment for what it is that I already had. In this case, a 6-shot cap and ball revolver, because this right here would be capable enough to be able to handle the things that still need handled during that time period, and the next version of technology is not a step above, way beyond the previous version. So this right here would still be a good practical choice, especially if you had multiple cylinders to where you could just pull the front of your barrel off, put a new cylinder on, close it, and now you are reloaded. You don't have to go through and reload every single cylinder. However, by the time we get to by the time that smokeless powder is invented in 1886, and we see smokeless variants and self-loading firearms really start becoming a thing, into the early 1900s, whenever self-loading handguns and whatnot really start to become predominant on the market, I would say around that time period where that extremely fast reloading system, being able to just take an old mag out, put a new mag in, rack your slide, and continue to go to work, I'd say that right there is about the time where the percussion cap and even the style of single action army where you have to load and eject one single case at a time, I would say that is where that particular style of handgun becomes less effective and less efficient. Now that being said, it all depends on the job being done. Like, for example, something like this could still be used for defensive purposes today. By today's standards, most of the time, most of your defensive encounters are handled and done whenever the defender or offender fires 3 to 5 rounds, which is still within the realms of something like this. However, if we escalate to something like an offensive standard, to where you will need more ammunition to handle some sort of job or some sort of situation, maybe you have to clear your house and whoever's in there has decided to themselves to show up armed and ready to go, then maybe something like this might not be the best option. But if I had, oh, come on, baby, I got me some cap lock. But if I had some ruffians in my house and I showed up with this right here, if there was 4 of them, then this would not necessarily be ideal. But if I had somebody bump into me in, oh, I don't know, an alley somewhere, and they're a hunter of opportunity, and they draw their sidearm and they're like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and rob this guy, well, these 6 shots will take care of that particular encounter. I guess it all depends on how many people you come across and what it is that they're armed with, and whether or not they decide to themselves, hey, I'm going to go ahead and turn this guy into a victim. But this right here, still a pretty gosh darn powerful handgun, even by today's standards. This is 44 caliber, and this particular one is a little on the dirty side, that's why I'm having difficulties here. But 44 caliber, and this will definitely poke a hole in someone. I'm using soft lead ammo, and I would like to see what this does on like a meat target or something like that. That would be fun. And that's just something that you get with these old school revolvers. They're not necessarily the most reliable at all times. Let's go ahead and try that one that failed to fire one more time. There we go, she fired that time. So yeah, that's definitely quite the potent little round. So something like this, considering that most of your defensive encounters are said and done and handled pretty gosh darn quickly, like within seconds, something like this right here could absolutely still be viable, even by today's standards, for self-defense purposes, especially if you have multiple cylinders and know how to reload these things rather rapidly. However, I would still consider this to be just too antiquated of a technology to really bet my life on it, especially considering that they can be pretty gosh darn unreliable, like what we just saw now. Not only that, but black powder doesn't really propel things as quickly as we would like. In this particular case, I got 44 caliber round ball. I got 30 grains of black powder behind it. It's going to go approximately 1,000 or so feet per second. And don't get me wrong, that's not underpowered, but I guess it depends on your style of bullet as well. It's not something that I would want to get hit by any means. As a matter of fact, I know 45 ACP is a 230 grain round that travels at about 850 feet per second. This is about a 150-ish grain round, if memory serves me correctly, and it's going to be traveling at about 1,000 feet per second. So you might get roughly the same equivalent force. Nah, maybe not, because 45 ACP is a lot heavier. I'm not sure, I haven't done the math on that one, but I do know that getting hit by one of these would not be ideal. Now, of course, the more power you have behind this thing, the more power you're going to have behind said cartridge going down range. So it might take more than one shot, but hey, if it does take more than one shot, you have yourself 6 shots to go ahead and handle this situation. And that is one of the big perks about having something like this, especially since you can go ahead and swap out these cylinders if you have multiple cylinders and decide that you have the capabilities and the knowledge to do that. So something like this is possible. Something like this, I would deem this antiquated technology and not necessarily the best option by the time self-loaders come out, because I would take like a 1911 over something like this any day of the week. Although this could still get the job done, the self-loading technology with the smokeless powder and the better quality ammunition, the more reliable ammunition, and the ease of reload, to be able to reload your handgun much faster, like for example with the 1911, those just have too many benefits that outweigh something like this. And even something like the 1873 style revolver, where you have to load one single round at a time. The self-loading firearms, where you just, putting a new magazine when you have your round of ammunition, that absolutely blows these out of the water. So for defensive capabilities, I would put that around that time period, early 1900s. About the time where this new revolutionary self-loading technology takes place. I would deem that to be the time period where this becomes antiquated. However, this absolutely could still be used, just like you could still use this if you have somebody coming in through your window and you want to plug a golf ball-sized hole into their chest cavity. Then, hey, guess what? That will do it. Don't miss. Hope they don't have buddies. And if they do, then you better be pretty gosh darn good at reloading. Speaking of reloading, I actually have a few more rounds for this. Let's go ahead and send a few more rounds downrange. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and grab myself a bowling pin here and set a round ball into the bowling pin, why not? Alright, so first, powder. We got about 60 grains of powder that I'll be throwing into this. This is FFG. I can't remember the brand, not like it really matters. It goes bang no matter what. I think I have a 490 diameter ball, and normal reloading with this, I would need a patch for this, but I fired this thing so much, the fouling of the barrel holds this in place. Yep, there we go. I see my bowling pin fell down. I'll go ahead and reset it just as soon as I'm done loading. Oh, wouldn't that be ironic if while you're loading, your adversary just kind of falls over and dies. It's like, well, he died of old age before I was done loading my musket. Rifled musket in this case. Oh god, don't drop the cap. That bowling pin is really, really bad at standing up on its own. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and put a second bowling pin out here to hold it up. There we go. That looks about good. Alright, now, it's not going anywhere, and I'm going to go ahead and put a 50 caliber lead ball into that bad boy. Oh, that poor bowling pin. I like this musket. You know what? I have one more round for this thing. Let's send it down range, why not? Again, with our 60 grains of powder, holding this away from my face, just in case it does decide to flash. Damn, scrubbing the black powder out of this thing's gonna be fun. There's so much buildup in this. I've shot a tremendous amount of rounds through this muzzleloader now. You know what? I see my steel target down there, just barely poking out through the weeds. Let's see if we can go ahead and hit that bastard. We're at about 40 yards, and on my last video, my front sight came off, so I have no idea if this rifle's zero. But yeah, I put the rifle sight back on, tightened it up some. We are in the center of the rifle. So assuming that this thing actually shoots through, we should hit our target. Let's find out. Aha! We did hit it. I hit the upper left corner of it. All right, so this does hit a little bit high, but boy, oh boy, we smacked that steel. Okay, so we are hitting a little high and a little left. I'll go ahead and I'll tap this. That's why. It's not quite zero. There we go. There we go. That's centered. Okay, let's go ahead and try that again. Same spot. I'll aim a little bit lower and we'll see if we can hit center on that bad boy. I do have one last round out here for this thing, and then we'll go ahead and we'll pack it in. I would like to come out here and like actually, what do you call it, accuracy test this thing with round ball, because I've never accuracy tested this thing with the particular ammunition that I'm using here. I have accuracy tested it with conical style bullets, and it does all right with that, but I would like to test with the round ball. Get down there, boy. So much fouling in this thing. This is a 490 diameter ball in a 50 caliber barrel, and I'm having to use a ramrod to get it down. All right, percussion nipple on. We are in full cock. Let me go ahead. Yep, confirmed. That is just a little bit more right there. Perfect center. I'll have to go through and tighten that back up. Let me aim at the bottom of our target. We'll see if we hit it. All right, survey says, oh, we sure did. Yep, it's still to the left, but we did hit a little bit more center. Phenomenal. I like this thing. This is a fun thing. Okay, well, that is all of the rounds that I have out here, unless I want to start like finding rocks or debris or something to load into this thing, but we're going to go ahead and not do that because that's rifling. I don't want to mess up that rifling. So thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. What do you guys think about this particular subject? I would deem, like I said, I would deem the turn of the century to be for the revolvers when that becomes antiquated. And whenever breech loading technology shows up, that would be when this becomes antiquated by my own observations, by my own definitions. That's the word I'm looking for. What do you guys think? And should I continue more with this series, like just picking a style or a genre of firearm and just deciding the point in time where it becomes antique technology? I feel like that would be a lot of fun. I feel like that would be a lot of fun. Okay, well, anyway, you guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. It looks like I got some weather coming in, so I'm going to go ahead, pack it in, and go clean my black powder firearms. I'll see you all in the next episode. I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.